Now, on top of that story, we have this from After Downing Street on January 22nd. 42 arrested at U.S. Capitol denouncing Obama's broken promises on Guantanamo, America's broken laws, and lives broken by torture. In a dramatic protest, 42 U.S. citizens associated with Witnesses Against Torture were arrested this afternoon at the U.S. Capitol. Refraining from carrying their own identification, 41 of 42 have been held in central lockup and will be arraigned tomorrow afternoon before a judge. The protest comes on the eve of the since-voided deadline President Obama had set for closing the prison camp at Guantanamo. Those arrested on the Capitol steps held banners reading "Broken Promises, Broken Laws, Broken Lies." Inside the Capitol, 14 activists performed a memorial service for the 3 men whose deaths at Guantanamo in 2006 were initially reported as suicides and callously described as acts of asymmetrical warfare by military officials. New reports provide strong evidence that the men may have been tortured to death at a CIA secret prison in Guantanamo. Now we have an article from the Times Online on January 26th by David Brown and Felipe Naughton. Lawyer's memo contradicts Jack Straw's evidence to Chilcot inquiry. Jack Straw's chief legal advisor at the time of the Iraq invasion directly challenged his former boss's version of events today when he told the Chilcot inquiry that the then foreign secretary had overruled his advice against military action. In a day of potentially explosive testimony, the inquiry also heard that Mr. Straw had reassured his American counterpart a year before the invasion that he was entirely comfortable making the case for war. The revelations from Sir Michael Wood run counter to Mr. Straw's own evidence to the inquiry last week when the Justice Secretary insisted that he had only very reluctantly supported the conflict and described his moral and political anguish in the run-up to the invasion in March of 2003. Equally damaging for the cabinet veteran is a claim by Sir Michael, the top Foreign Office lawyer at the time, that Mr. Straw told him he had often ignored legal advice when he was at the Home Office and had always got away with it. Next story is from the London Guardian on January the 26th by Martin Chuloy. Iraq littered with high levels of nuclear and dioxin contamination, study finds. More than 40 sites across Iraq are contaminated with high levels of radiation and dioxins, with 3 decades of war and neglect having left environmental ruin in large parts of the country, an official Iraqi study has found. Areas in and near Iraq's largest towns and cities, including Najaf, Basra, and Fallujah, account for around 25% of the contaminated sites, which appear to coincide with communities that have seen increased rates of cancer and birth defects over the past 5 years. The joint study by the Environment, Health, and Science Ministries found that scrap metal yards in and around Baghdad and Basra contain high levels of ionizing radiation, which is thought to be a legacy of depleted uranium used in munitions during the first Gulf War and since the 2003 invasion. The Environment Minister, Narman Othman, said high levels of dioxins on agricultural lands in southern Iraq, in particular, were increasingly thought to be a key factor in a general decline in the health of people living in the poorest parts of the country. If we look at Basra, there are some heavily polluted areas there, and there are many factors contributing to it, she told The Guardian. First, it has been a battlefield for 2 wars, the Gulf War and the Iraq War, where many kinds of bombs were used. Also, oil pipelines were bombed and most of the contamination settled in and around Basra. Now, a lot of these articles this week are coming out of England. We have another one from the London Guardian on January the 25th. UK, CCTV in the sky, drones to be used for domestic spying. Police in the UK are planning to use unmanned spy drones controversially deployed in Afghanistan for the routine monitoring of antisocial motorists, protesters, agricultural thieves, and fly tippers, and a significant expansion of covert state surveillance. The arms manufacturer BAE Systems, which produces a range of unmanned aerial vehicles for war zones, is adapting the military-style planes for a consortium of government agencies led by Kent Police. Documents from South Coast Partnership, a Home Office-backed project in which Kent Police and others are developing a national drone plan with BAE, have been obtained by The Guardian under the Freedom of Information Act. They reveal the partnership intends to begin using the drones in time for the 2012 Olympics. They also indicate that police claims that the technology will be used for maritime surveillance fall well short of their intended use, which could span a range of police activity, and that officers have talked about selling the surveillance data to private companies. A prototype drone equipped with high-powered cameras and sensors is set to take to the skies for test flights later this year. Okay, our next article was on America 20XY on January 24th, written by myself. Sarkozy warns that Israel may strike Iran. During a meeting with Lebanese Prime Minister, French President Nicolas Sarkozy said that Israel will not sit idly by while Iran continues work on its nuclear program, indirectly issuing a threat to the Iranian regime on Israel's behalf. Israel might take action to prevent the Iranian regime, which wants to wipe it off the map, from obtaining a nuclear bomb, Sarkozy reportedly said. Point in fact, Iran's Mahmoud Ahmadinejad never did state that Iran wants to wipe Israel off the face of the map. No such idiom exists in Persian. As Jonathan Steele of the London Guardian wrote, the Iranian president was quoting an ancient statement by Iran's first Islamist leader, the late Ayatollah Khomeini, that this regime occupying Jerusalem must vanish from the page of time, just as the Shah's regime in Iran had vanished. He was not making a military threat. He was calling for an end to the occupation of Jerusalem at some point in the future. The page of time phrase suggests he did not expect it to happen soon. Sarkozy stated that France has proof Iran is working to develop an atomic bomb. This would stand in contrast to the CIA's 2007 assessment that Iran had halted its nuclear bomb program back in 2003. The latest nuclear smoking gun that came out earlier this month in the form of a classified document that purported to show Iran was working on neutron initiators for atomic weapons was debunked by U.S. intelligence, which concluded that it was a fabrication. Also in France, we have an article. This is on Ynet News on January the 24th. Strong public support in France for burqa ban. A report drafted by French parliamentarians will this week call for a ban on Afghan-style burqas and other garments that cover a woman's face. The Times said Sunday the proposal, said the London-based newspaper's online edition, has strong public support. According to an opinion poll by Ipsos for the magazine Le Point, 57% of voters favor a ban, while 37% are opposed. Recommendations of a parliamentary commission to be published on Tuesday are expected to include a bar on wearing full veils on public transport and in schools, hospitals, and public sector offices, including post offices. The commission is thought likely to call for a total ban after further consultation, according to the Times. Sarkozy opened debate on the topic in June, telling a special gathering of both houses of parliament that veils that cover the face are not welcome in France. He reiterated his position Wednesday, saying the full veil is contrary to our values and contrary to the ideals we have of a woman's dignity. According to the Times, he is reportedly reluctant to impose a total ban, saying he would prefer a national consensus on the issue. His center-right party, the UMP, is divided, the newspaper said. The head of Sarkozy's party said last week that he wants a law to ensure that Muslim women who wear face-covering veils do not acquire French nationality. Now back here in the United States, we have an article from the Washington Post on January 19th by John Solomon and Kerry Johnson. FBI broke law for years in phone record searches. The FBI illegally collected more than 2,000 U.S. telephone call records between 2002 and 2006 by invoking terrorism emergencies that did not exist or simply persuading phone companies to provide records, according to internal bureau memos and interviews. FBI officials issued approvals after the fact to justify their actions. Emails obtained by the Washington Post detail how counterterrorism officials inside FBI headquarters did not follow their own procedures that were put in place to protect civil liberties. The stream of urgent requests for phone records also overwhelmed the FBI Communications and Analysis Unit with work that ultimately was not connected to imminent threats. A Justice Department Inspector General's report due out this month is expected to conclude that the FBI frequently violated the law with its emergency requests, Bureau officials confirmed. Okay, our next article is related to that terrible earthquake that happened in Haiti. It was originally on commondreams.org on January 18th, written by Richard Kim. And I have it under the headline, Tightening Its Grip, IMF Imposing Conditions on Haiti for Relief Loan. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's very lengthy and goes into the history of Haiti and Western powers' role in keeping that nation oppressed and leading it to where the horrible condition that it's in now, and it was right before the earthquake. But we have in a paragraph Now, in its attempts to help Haiti, the IMF is pursuing the same kinds of policies that made Haiti a geography of precariousness even before the quake. To great fanfare, the IMF announced a new $100 million loan to Haiti on Thursday. In one crucial way, the loan is a good thing. Haiti is in dire straits and needs a massive cash infusion. But the new loan was made through IMF's extended credit facility, to which Haiti already has $165 million in debt. Debt relief activists tell me that these loans came with conditions, including raising prices for electricity, refusing pay increases to all public employees except those making minimum wage, and keeping inflation low. They say the new loans would impose these same conditions. In other words, in the face of this latest tragedy, the IMF is still using crisis and debt as leverage to compel neoliberal reforms.